What's one book that changed your life?
Ooh, there are lots of books that I love and love to read. I'm not a rereader, so books that I reread are few and far between. Can I answer with two? I had a friend recently, the neuroscientist Oliver Sacks died, and he'd written a handful of books, and we'd read one of his books in my honors lit class. And my friend said, he passed away. Do you remember we read this? And I went, that's why I'm a neuroscientist. I didn't realize that book had actually changed the course of my education. But as a writer, Tim O'Brien, The Things They Carried. I don't know if you've read it. It's a lot of writers have. I think every writer should read it. There's a piece in there called How to Tell a True War Story, and the book is about him and his troops in Vietnam. But as a writer, he's just a stunning writer. And probably why the book is still so famous all these years later. But it has this whole piece about how if you're telling someone a story, whether you're writing it or not, you can't tell it exactly as it happened because that's not the truth. The truth of the story isn't in the actual actions and happenings, it's in the feelings of the story. And so if I don't tell you what it takes to get the feelings of the people who were there, then I'm not telling the true story. So in a war story, if you tell what happens, everybody's going to be horrified. But the soldiers weren't horrified because they were so inured to it by the time that it happened. So you have to tell it in this kind of funny, offbeat way so that the reader gets the real experience and the listener gets the real experience of it. And it just absolutely changed how I wanted to write. Because I think being science oriented, I was very, very plot oriented and very, this is how it happens. And this is how these people go together. And after reading that, it was like, oh, I need to be telling true stories. And I found that a lot in the fire station and in doing the research. It's really helped model a lot of that. And I think that's where that best day ever on the job, worst day ever on the job kind of came from, is that, like, if you really want to know what the truth is and how these people are, how they react to things, what do they value? That's where it comes from. So that book definitely changed my life.
That's really interesting. I haven't heard of that book actually, but you've piqued my interest now.
It's all short stories, so it's great. You can just kind of read it in chunks, and it's partly horrifying and partly just hysterically funny. And I I think every writer should read it.
Was there one particular Oliver Sacks book, or was it just kind of all of his stuff?
I eventually read all of his stuff, but we started with The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat.
I haven't read that. I think we own it. I think my boyfriend bought it and it's shared between our e-readers. But I
Mhm.
haven't read it, but it's always been one of those like kind of a bucket list read that I haven't got around to yet, you know?
It's worth it. It's fascinating, and they're all true stories. I mean, he's a neurosurgeon, so they're
I love
wild.
those kind of things where they're
And
like completely bizarre, but also
so
really true.
and he does such a good job of not just saying like this is bizarre, but this is bizarre because this is the mechanism in the brain that got broken that caused it.
And I think
And
that's the important thing, not just for neuroscience, but also for writing, is understanding, yes, this is the thing that happened, but you need to know why
here's
that happened. And I think that's when I find a book lacks depth, it's usually because it's lacking that why.
that's a really good point. I like that. I think I've
And I,
been doing it, but I haven't been thinking of it the way that you just said it.
Yeah, I think it's because you already have this really in-depth research process. You don't need to consciously think about it. But when I've beta read for other people, it's something I find that is lacking, and it's something I push people on. It's something my editor pushed me on when I started writing fantasy. And sometimes if you're new to a genre or new to writing about a particular topic or theme, that's when
Mhm.
you need to think about it harder and, like I say, do more research. And you may not have
Agreed.
thought that you need to do that research because it's something you've not covered before.
Yeah, the whole I don't know what I don't know thing is just it's petrifying, and it can stop you in your tracks. But I do think like if you can reach out to friends and see somebody who knows, people know a lot more than we think they do, and you probably have an expert closer at hand. And they're pretty good about saying like, here's where you start, here's what people don't know.
Yeah, exactly.